with you under the mistletoe. Hi, we are Lujo and the Gifted, and you're watching The Morning Brew on CNC3. Season's greetings!
Welcome back, and I want to say happy independence to all of the Bajans here. Today, Barbados celebrates 52 years of independence. There's going to be a massive celebration at Price Plaza this afternoon. So if you want to be part of the celebrations also to understand the cultural contribution. And the fact is that we're all one. The blood of the Caribbean remains strong, and the ties and integration is not a dream, but a reality, and we must accept that. I'm Hema Ramkissoon, and this is The Morning Brew. Moving quickly on to our first interview this morning. Joining us on the line, Carolyn Seepersad-Bachan, former Minister of Energy. Today, a big day in the energy sector. Petrotrin will now be relegated. The word Petrotrin, the term, the symbol, the company, will be relegated to the history books. Its contribution, how will we judge the decision that will impact the lives, that will impact directly 5,700 persons, and still the fallout we're trying to ascertain. Ms. Seepersad-Bachan, good morning. How are you?
Good morning to you, Hema, and a special good morning to all your viewers.
My first question, obviously today, November 30th, the deadline. Come this morning, 5,700 persons will no longer have a place to go to on Monday. What does today mean to you personally as a citizen of this country and as a former energy minister?
Well, let me start by saying, Hema, it is a very sad day, not just because Petrotrin, the name Petrotrin will not be, the company Petrotrin will no longer be, but mainly because, and we have seen several companies emerge over the years, but today marks the end of us being a refiner for refined products. And I think we have lost our leadership position in the CARICOM region. My understanding now today, based on what I heard Minister Khan say, is that the CARICOM markets are no longer for us, which we had warned several times that by shutting down the refinery, we would lose that premium market for CARICOM. And today that has played out. So today we have really returned in the energy sector. It speaks to the philosophy as well of the energy sector. We have returned to, producing our raw material, exporting that raw material, and having some other entity, some other country develop the value for that raw material, add value to it, and re-importing that refined product, that value added, into our country. And to me, that means that for fuel security, for Trinidad and Tobago, we have lost fuel security, and we have lost being the leaders in the region for fuel security in the CARICOM region. We have given up that position of leadership. So let me start there by that issue. And it speaks to a wider issue as to what is going to happen with the rest of the energy sector if this is the thinking that we want to just extract our raw material, our natural resources, and export them without us adding the value, the famous plantation economy issue. So that's the first issue. The second issue that I want to say is that there are many, many, many issues, Hema. I've been on your program through public statements, through different fora. We warned the government of several issues as far back as the first week of September, and many of those issues have played out today. The first being the pension plan. When I indicated that pension plan was going to, because of the sudden shutdown of the refinery and the closure of Petrotrin, the entire company, and sending home all of these people, that you were putting the pension plan at risk, because 1,300 people would become eligible for payout because of their age, over 50 years. The rules of the plan require that you make this payout, and therefore there was going to be a requirement for $1 billion payout, which the plan could not afford. And we were told that the plan was in surplus and was overfunded. Today we see that the plan is, in a deficit, and we're talking about $2.7 billion, which the government or the company Petrotrin is going to have to fund, because at the end of the day, this is a pension plan, and these are employees we are dealing with. We indicated that once you close, it becomes a closed plan, and there are no new contributions. You will not be able to afford your existing cash flows, outflows to the existing retirees. That has come to pass. I also, at the time, we had warned that the medical plan is going to come to an end. They did not respond to that. The government did not respond. Today, what has happened, even after the industrial court judgment last week, Petrotrin retirees, over a 48-hour period, they were all forced to sign a surgical plan, which is the worst plan I've ever seen in my life, where you are only limited to $5,000 for a 2-year period, $5,000 for any pre-existing condition that you may have. And these are retirees who contributed all their lives to a medical plan.
Let me ask you something about the medical plan in particular, because I know there are a number of issues. I looked at the actual composition of this medical plan. I got a copy of it. The plan itself, it allows for a contribution by the employee, but that plan seems to be quite different to any other plan existing in any other similar corporate entity or comparable entity.
Which plan are you
I'm talking
about?
specifically about
the
medical plan. Let's talk about the medical plan itself, because I know
Petrotrin's medical plan.
Right.
Right, which is no longer.
It's no longer.
Come to an end.
Because the entity and the new board had basically looked and said they could not afford the benefits given, because I think they looked at it and said it was not comparable to any other similar entity. They looked at the fact that it's not just the employee and the immediate family, but also to the children. And I think when you looked at the timing, the ages, it was for the rest of their lives, not just for the employees, but for that.
And that was something that was negotiated. And you have to understand, when you negotiate benefits, you forego. So in the collective bargaining process, in the negotiations itself, you would have agreed that we would give up something else to be able to get these benefits. Now, had retirees known today that that medical plan was coming to an end and they were going to be given a medical plan, which is substandard in my view, they would have probably contributed to another medical plan and put alternative plans in place. That is my problem with this issue. And even if it is you felt that the medical plan could not survive on its own, or that you needed higher contributions, why did you not return to the collective bargaining process and negotiate for increases in contributions by retirees and employees, if that was the case? And, we could get into the details again. We're talking about a whole system here, the Augustus Law. But if you go into the analysis of the difficulties and the challenges, the financial challenges that those institutions, the health centers and the hospital and so on are facing, it's a lot of issues which in terms of inefficiencies again, which can be corrected. So I put that, and these are issues that have not yet been settled and have not been fully discussed.
But have they now? The pension plan, the board has stated that they are in discussions with Republic Bank, obviously the trustees of this fund, and they're confident that it is going to be resolved today. Are we prejudging this issue to say that this is not going to be resolved?
Well, I'm just looking at the correspondence that came out from Republic Bank, which tells you the status of the plan. And the status of the plan is saying that you have a $2.73 billion deficit, which has to be covered. And if that is not covered, they cannot continue with the plan. And that is the bottom line. So I think that is what they're negotiating right now between the company and the bank. The point that I'm making here, the company will be obligated at the end of the day to fund this deficit. But what it adds up to is what is the total cost now for the shutdown of this Petrotrin refinery. And it's because of this sudden closure where you are sending home every person without first thinking if we had a plan. Instead of sending home all the people over 50 years of age, who, by the way, with enhanced severance packages, will have an enhanced severance package because many of them, or some of them, not all of them, will have had many years of service. So they will have they will have a severance package, and they will also have a payout from the pension plan in accordance with the pension rules. But what happens to the younger people? And this was what we warned of. When you talk about this severance package and you gave the impression that everybody was going to benefit from this enhanced severance package, that was not so. You have many employees who work 30, 40 years as temporary workers, and they will go home with nothing. And then you have those who work many years as temporary workers and only came on as permanent in the last couple of years. What will they be going home with? Some of them $7,000, $10,000. These are the packages we are hearing. those employees who are impacted by this decision.
You
look at now the younger ones,
right.
many of them, they now have taken out mortgages, they have gone into debt because of this new position they may have had they may be in that position for the last 5, 6, 7 years. I'm talking about people over 30 years of age, right, over 40 years of age, and they have big mortgage payments on their home. Today, many of them, because they no longer have a salary, will go into default, and therefore the banks are going to call in those mortgages. These are issues that we have not dealt with. And we have not dealt with the issue of how all of these people are going to be reabsorbed. All of these 5,500. And don't forget, Hema, when I started on your program, you know, they kept saying it was only 1,500 people affected. I kept saying it's over 5,000. If you include the whole of the Petrotrin workforce, which all of them must go home, and if you look at all the temporary and casual workers, it's going to be over 5,000. Today it's at what? 5,500. I think I heard 5,700.
It's 57.
5,500 people who have been sent home. And out of those 5,500 people, you have a lot of skills that this country invested in development. Skill sets and process engineering, instrumentation.
The government is confident that the increased expected activity in the Southwest Peninsula will cushion the impact. Now, I know that will not happen within the next month or the next 6 months. So there is going to be a gap within the labor market and a gap in economic activity. But are you confident that the 5,700 persons we're speaking about will have the opportunity to restart some semblance of normalcy with the increased activity?
Of course not. I have no confidence in that. What is this increased economic activity? Shipbuilding? Shipbuilding is the project I'm hearing about.
Yeah.
And I commend the government for going into shipbuilding. It is part of the diversification thrust of the economy. But shipbuilding will not absorb process engineers. They will not absorb instrumentation engineers. They will not absorb chemical engineers. They will not absorb petroleum engineers. Shipbuilding is about fabrication. Yes, so those who were involved in fabrication will have opportunities in that new industry. The service companies may have there may be some electricals, yes. So electrical engineers may have some opportunities. And if they do, it's a very limited number of electrical engineers. So what you have now is a whole lot of people with skill sets, which I expect that what I know they're doing is applying abroad for jobs. So you're going to have a lot of migration of skills.
So you're expecting a brain drain as one of the unintended consequences?
Exactly, because where are these people going to be employed? Petrotrin actually served as a training ground for a lot of the operators who went into the Point Lisas industrial estate, for a lot of the people who go into the upstream, in the exploration and production areas, into the service companies that service the exploration and production activities. What happens to all of these people? And in fact, the industry itself is going to lose a valuable training ground. It provided the experience. And because the salaries were never really very competitive, compared with the other Point Lisas industrial estate companies, you will find that a lot of the operators and so on will use Petrotrin as a training ground to get the experience. And after 4 or 5 years, they're able to move into the Point Lisas industrial estate where they have, more valuable, their remuneration is improved packages. And as a result of that, it was a continuous training ground through all their skill centers, etc. And that is going to be no more. So again, too, these are some of the issues that have not been dealt with as we fallout, as you said. But more than that, there are more issues to be dealt with.
What are some of the, because we know about the pension plan, we know of the medical plan, we know about the possibility of a brain drain that will occur as a result of the closure of this entity. What are some of the other consequences that that are not being brought to the front that you expect to be discussed, let's say, within the next 6-month period?
Well, I'm still not sure what's going to happen to the debt in Petrotrin. I understand the government has given the guarantees now.
The government has come out and they said that they will guarantee that
they will guarantee
the bond. Yes.
Now, my point is, who is going to pick up the repayment of that debt? Is it Paria? Is it Heritage? Paria can't. Paria now has no CARICOM market. In fact, Paria is duplicating what NPMC is doing, National Petroleum. Are we going to see another fallout there? Are we going to see retrenchment in NPMC as well? No, because why do you need national petroleum when you have Paria? Paria is now importing refined products and selling to the domestic market. That's the end of their operation if we have no CARICOM market. Okay? That's the first issue. So what's that fallout there? The second issue, as we're saying, the debt. Who is picking up the repayments of the debt? Can Heritage repay debt? Is Heritage in a position? Heritage needs to raise new money. They need to raise new financing. In fact, the first estimate, and I raised this point several times, $8 billion required in order to look at their asset integrity issues, in the investments for new infrastructure required to boost the production that they're talking about, moving from 40,000 to 60,000 barrels a day. It's all well and good to talk about 160,000 barrels a day. I'm sorry, 160 million, I think I heard the minister say, as the reserves that we have on tap. We agree with that. And for years, we told the PNM government, since 2007, on various campaign platforms, we made the point that you need to get back, Petrotrin needs to get back into exploration activity. Too much money, a lot of wastage that went into the GOP project and the World GTL project. That money, a lot of that wastage could have gone into boosting your exploration.
Let me ask you this.
Activity.
I know that you were there.
Where's that money coming from today?
I know that you were there.
That new financing? Who's guaranteed the $8 billion that is required to deal with that issue?
You were there as energy minister for a short time. You talk about the legacy of the gas liquids project and the World GTL project. These projects occurred, let's say, in the latter end of 2008, 2007. We're looking at the investment period at that time.
Started in 2006. The investment started in 2006, you recall. In 2007, that was a big campaign.
Is it that no administration or no board since 2007 have been able to come up with a plan or was able to come up with a plan for Petrotrin to avoid the inevitable consequence of the closure today?
I disagree with that because we did. When I came in, we met the big cost overruns, we met the project delays. Well, the GTL project had already gone through. That was a big failure, okay, already. That had happened in 2009, that plant could not come up, okay, and that the technology, the plants that they bought, you know, whatever, it was the configuration, the technology part of it, the technical issues were not technical. The whole plant was not technically feasible. So it was a wasted investment. There were serious cost overruns on that particular project. At that point in time, that is when we started issuing legal action as Petrotrin board to start legal action against the various shareholders, the other players, in terms of the supply of this project that could not, a failed project. That was the GTL project, already failed. In 2010, we started a program for Petrotrin to make sure that we could have addressed this debt situation. I think I mentioned this twice on your program. And one of the issues was to put aside what we call a sinking fund to deal with this debt, this bullet payment to be made in 2019, which is next year. That was as far back as 2010. We had put that in place.
So today,
I don't know why that was not continued. Okay,
so we talk about the plans, but here
nothing in place to keep the debt. And let me just make the point again, Hema, remind the population. At no point in time, even up to today, has the government ever put 1 cent into Petrotrin in terms of having to repay its debt.
But you look at the company,
payment or principal payment.
You look at the company today. It's going. The doors are going to be closed today. Moving forward, the government has promised a period of prosperity, lean, mean, efficient machine. They have painted this entity as an entity which a drain with untapped potential that they could not be able to exploit because of the current arrangements, the existing structure that it operated within. Have we learned from the past, considering government's track record for reforming state entities and the involvement in state entities? Do you think Paria and Heritage are going to be or will lead the way into a brighter future?
Well, not from what I'm seeing in terms of the practice so far, because what is happening there with both Paria and Heritage? What is the procurement process going on right now in terms of hiring all these firms or these companies or contractors to provide services for these two companies? What has changed? And this is the problem I had from day one. You identify what were the problems, and the problems involved a number of inefficiencies that could have been corrected. Closing down the company does not correct those problems. And we made those points over and over. You have to fix your procurement process in Petrotrin. And these are management issues that have never been dealt with and have not been dealt with. When we started off, and I will go back to 2010, when I started off as Minister of Energy, we put certain measures in place to deal with this issue.
What advice do you...
Hiring
I know it...
taking place in Petrotrin. Incompetencies.
Well, the incompetency did not start overnight. It didn't start within the last 5 years. Successive administrations have been accused of using Petrotrin as a political football. Decisions by senior management, so not just the alignment, but the wastage, the contract, the procurement. It's not a problem that started under the Keith Rowley administration.
It started from many years before. It started with when the GOP project started in 2005, from its time in 2001, 2002. And let me just remind you, that is one of the issues that I did have a fallout with, because I indicated to many that Petrotrin is not a political football. It's in serious situation and requires serious measures.
What do you think, as we close this interview, what advice will you have for the workers today? Because in the end, we can speak about the indecision of successive administration. We can speak about the legacy of corruption and the allegations that have dogged this entity for decades. But today, 5,700 workers are going to face the reality that come Monday morning, they will have no place of work.
And I am saying all of this could have been avoided. All of this. Right? And I will say, yes, successive administration. Administration after administration did not want to take the hard decision in terms of allowing Petrotrin to function as an entity on its own in commercial viable terms. And an example is, just the same way now we have to go and pay market prices for LPG,
right.
We should have been paying Petrotrin the market price for LPG. But instead, we've allowed Petrotrin to sell that product into the domestic market at a subsidized price, at a cost of almost $250 million every year.
Ms. Seepersad-Bachan,
these are the issues that we addressed in 2010 to make sure that Petrotrin would have survived, because
well, you didn't resolve all of the issues under the UNC administration, and I guess that those issues continued well into the Rowley administration.
Last question, sorry about that.
Well, I know we're out of time for this interview, but we do want to thank you again this morning for joining us and for sharing some insight. Carolyn Seepersad-Bachan, she served as Minister of Energy under the People's Partnership Administration. Come today, Petrotrin, once the flagship state entity in the energy sector, will be no more. The symbol and the name will now be relegated to the history books. While the political pundits and the analysts weigh in as to the merits of the decision, as to whether or not the government did the right thing and the timing would coincide with the change in fortunes on the international market, there's a human side to this story that we must all be cognizant of. Because while we speak of balance sheets and we speak of losses, the reality, 5,700 persons today will have no job. We take a short break. Before we take a break, I want to touch quickly on a story that came to my attention. The Law Association will be having its annual dinner at the Hyatt Regency Hotel tonight. Apparently, the organizers of the event made the decision to have a guest speaker. That guest speaker being none other than Dr. Hollis Liverpool. You may know Dr. Liverpool as chalk dust, a cultural icon in our country. But some members of the LATT, the administration and the council, they are not very pleased with the decision of the key speaker and of the decision to have him attend the function. In fact, in 2017, they learned from a rhythmic performance, especially the last verse that was sung at the Dimash Graf finals, well, that was considered by many to be an attack on the Hindu community and by extension Sat Maraj. The word got out that chalk dust was going to be a guest speaker, and many members of the profession have expressed disappointment with the choice of speaker. Looking at what's taking place, it will be interesting to see who attends the Law Association's dinner tonight and who doesn't. Well, to get lawyers to agree on something would be the day the world would probably reach a new chapter, trust me.